Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Hey, this is Big Mike.
And I'm Jason.
Yeah, and welcome back to Sergeant Stock TV. Hey, we're starting a new thing, and we told you about this last week, and I forgot to turn down the volume.
Consistency is key.
It is, right?
That's
Uh Hopefully there. Oh crap. No, I got it. Okay. So welcome back to Sergeant Talk TV. Hey, we wanted to start this. It's called Tales from the Foxhole. And what we wanted to do is give people in the chat an opportunity to come up and talk about some experiences they've had in the military or whatever you want to talk about, period. If you've got questions and stuff like that, and that's fine also. It doesn't have to be in combat. It could be anytime during your military career, after your military career, whatever. Get stuff off your chest. We don't care what the subject is, and we'll help you out. Probably ask you questions if trying to find out what's best for you. But before we do that, we want to say hello to everybody that's in the chat right now. Okay, so I'll start at the top.
And I hang out at the bottom.
He hangs out at the bottom. We had Joe Fix It For You that came in earlier. Hopefully he's back. I know I seen Ginger Snap.
I'm seeing Ginger there, not for nothing, saying hey to us. So,
Linda Peterson's here.
And there's Tim Mason. Hey, brother. Hopefully you're doing well.
Yep. There's Merns Pacquiao. She's here all the way from the Philippines. Welcome, my friend.
We've got Ricky Smith from over there at Veterans Landing. It's all not far from here.
Lynn Leoki's here.
There's James Hall, y'all.
There you go. Not to be confused with Ryan Hall.
No.
Yeah. Hey, there's Cookie. Lila Newton's here.
Oh, I see Bobby over at Pettigene. He says he can't type. He's only got one good hand. Gout sauce.
Oh. Hey, Reverend Dream's here.
What's up, brother?
Welcome, brother.
See, Liam McGothigan made it in.
All right.
From across the pond. And there's another neighbor right there, Don at Hat Creek. And a fellow crayon eater.
There you go. Hey, there's Tiffany from Canadian Family Life. She's in here.
See, Debbie Drock made it, saying hi to everybody.
Mr. Leonard Mountain Homestead. Chris is in here.
What's up, Chris? The man with the epic beard.
That's right. Debbie Drock's in here.
Who else did I see? Daniel Kearney made it in.
There's Webb's Web.
I see these fancy folks by the name of an MT Homestead made it in.
Yeah, that's the Sergeant Major.
Yeah.
He's on. Hey, Rainy Ridge is here. Welcome in.
All right. Who else is jumping in? There's Shiloh Acres.
All
They're
right.
saying, hiya, everyone. The DAV's coming tomorrow to pick up the Dodge Journey. Finally found a tow company in our area to come get her.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
There is Judy Herman. Welcome in, Judy.
Yeah, I'd seen Shiloh had commented, I don't know, we were listening to somebody's live while we were driving, and they had asked, hey, will that, because they had asked us about donating to the DAV,
right?
And whoever was coming to pick it up was like, hey, can we drive it on the trailer? They're like, yeah, absolutely, and then went out there to start it, and he checked it the day before, and they had dead batteries, so they had to charge it up to be able to get it on there.
Hey, there's Daniel Kearney.
Who am I seeing? Did we say hi to Linda Peterson? We'll do it again if we did.
Yeah. Thank you. We got 32 people in here.
I know. I was looking all over. I guess just being gone for a weekend, I forgot where everything was. I was like, how do I tell how many people? Oh, it's up there. My first bed.
All right. So I think we said hello to everybody. And as they come in, we'll say hello to them. I'll leave it at the bottom. What Ginger Snap said, sunny and 95 degrees. Man, it is hot in Oklahoma.
Oh, it's hot in Arkansas.
Microwave.
We were driving home yesterday, and we thought by going up to Michigan we'd find cooler weather. No, it was in the 90s while we were up there.
Yeah.
And then as we were driving and we got like closer to St. Louis and through it, it finally hit the 100 mark. And I hadn't been paying attention. Like, I guess it was a little over 100 here yesterday. So luckily we came in the evening, but yeah, we hit all of 100 today again, and was it fun?
Hey, there he is. Critter Creek. Mickey's in here.
Who'd I just see popped in? Oh, my brain's not working. I don't know. I thought I'd seen somebody else pop in.
All right, I'm at the bottom.
Yeah. I guess I didn't. Oh, Robertson Belly Acres. That was the live we were listening to. Yeah. It happens. Vehicles, they're bound to not run when you want them to.
Which Shiloh Acre? I got a message from our producer.
Uh-oh.
Only because I have to go wrangle chickens, so we need another.
Oh, we got Anna Boer. Made it in.
There we go.
Well, so James Hall said, yeah, it's 108 here in North Texas with a heat index. Oh, Reverend Dream said it was raining in Russellville. They're calling for storms like it was looking. We bought a trailer of stuff home, and naturally I was like, I don't have a tarp. I don't have time to run it to storage because, well, my truck's giving me issues right now too. So I was like, I need to go get a tarp. So I jumped in the car and go get the tarp, and it looked like it was ready to downpour.
Oh, man.
But I put a tarp on the trailer, so it's not going to rain now.
I'll tell you what. Yeah. Hey, so up at the top, there's a link up there. If you see it pinned to the top, if you want to come up onto the panel and talk to us about your military experience, a story you want to talk about, if you got questions or you want to hash something out or whatever, you can click that link up there. It'll take you into the back. It's really simple. You can walk right through that and get back into the green room, and then we can bring you up and we can talk about whatever you want to talk about. But you know, there's different stories, and people had told me before, I need to write a book about my military experience. Not so much a serious book on the Army or anything like that. Just stupid things that happened to me while I was in the military. Because there's tons of them. You know what I mean? Tons of them. I don't care if they have to put me under hypnosis and ask me questions and I tell them the truth or whatever. But I mean, I did a lot of dumb things as a private, okay, before I became a non-commissioned officer. I did a lot of dumb things. Things I'm not proud of, things that will make you lean back and go, what? But I did a lot of dumb things. But I think that the thing that the worst thing that ever happened to me was I never drank at all growing up. As a kid, I was into sports and rodeo and stuff like that, and I never got into the crowd that drank and stuff like that. So I never had anything. So when I was in basic training, when we had our first leave, I went to the bowling alley and I sat there and I got me a soda pop, and everybody else was buying beer and stuff like the people that were 21. Because I think they had just the last state that changed from 18 to 21 was the state of Wisconsin. They were the last state that went to 21 because the federal government withhold, highway tax, monies and all that kind of stuff. So they pressure you in to falling in line, just like they do today.
Right.
A guy says, I said, well, I'm not 21. He goes, don't worry about it. He goes, I'll get you a beer and you just dump out that soda and put it in the paper cup. So I said, well, I'm not going to, I paid, 35 cents for this big glass of soda. Remember, this is 1979. So things didn't cost much. But even back then, because you weren't making a lot, 35 cents was still, to me, money.
Right.
I never had it because I was from a very poor family. So I chugged it, and he came back with a beer, and he goes, oh, where'd you dump it? I said, no, I drank it. He goes, oh, okay. And so he poured beer in my paper cup. And to me, it was the most god-awfulest drink I've ever drank in my life was beer, because I never even tried it. I think I tried it when I was a real young kid. My grandmother drank this beer called Brown Derby beer. It had to be the most rot gut beer because I kept asking. I said, what does beer taste like, Grandma? And she goes, oh, you don't need to be drinking no beer. This is only for adults and stuff. And I always did that. One day she gave me a drink. She goes, now, I'm going to give you a drink, and you got to drink as much as you can real quick and swallow it. It went in, and it came right back out all over my grandma's lap and stuff like that. So, but I never really drank anything. And I think I was really, really young. And so, so they poured beer in there, and I started drinking it and going, man, that ain't good. That ain't good. So I just said, no, I don't want no more. Finished out AIT and everything like that. Went over to Korea. Didn't drink when I was in Korea. And then I went over to Germany. Well, I went to Germany and went to a nuclear site, and everybody there was drinking. I mean, we were tower rats, guarding nuclear missiles and stuff like that. So everybody was an alcoholic. I mean, it was like, that's what you do, right?
Right.
I mean, if you went somewhere, it took you 20 miles to get to the nearest town from where we were. And nobody had a car, so you just see them walking. As soon as they got off duty on Friday, it was like a road march to the nearest town, right? And so the liquor store on post, of course, had all the business. It was one of the biggest money makers on the little small installation in Germany. And German beer is much stronger than any beer we serve in the States, right? And so these guys are drinking this. It was called Binding. The beer name was Binding. And roommate had them, and they were in between a pony and a regular beer. So they were like 8 ounces maybe. And so he goes, well, you need to try this one. This is a lot better. And I'm going, and I was drinking one. I go, well, that's not so bad, because Germans make some really phenomenal beer. And I started drinking, and I woke up the next morning, and I said, man, had this horrible headache. I said, man, I can't stand this. And they go, oh, you got a headache? I said, yeah. I said, how much did I drink? He goes, you drank 2 beers. He goes, and don't feel bad about it. He goes, that's a good thing. You know, he goes, because he goes, usually it takes me about 18 beers before I get drunk. I go, wow. And so I'm going, that's crazy. So then every weekend I fell into the stupor with these guys. He goes, oh man, you made it to through 3 beers and you didn't pass out. And so I was up there for like 18 months at this nuke site. And so one night we were going down to Mannheim, Germany, because Led Zeppelin was playing in concert at the ice hall there. So we took the trains and the streetcars to Mannheim, and we went there, and they introduced me to this stuff called Cola Weiss, and it's Coke and white wine mixed together. And they had them in these big plastic cups. And I started drinking. I said, man, these are sweet. These are really good, you know? It was like a Kool-Aid type thing, you know? And I'm going, man, this is great. And I was just drinking and drinking. He goes, dude, you need to slow down because wine will hit you worse than beer. And I go, oh, man, these are nothing. So I went back up there and I got me a second one, right? And they're like 24 ounce drinks. And I'm drinking that stuff. And all of a sudden they say, hey, it's time to go. And I'm walking, you know, and one guy's got my arm and they say, hey, let's get something to eat. And we grabbed something, I think it was a gyros or something like that off the Fußgängerzone before we got to the main train station. And the guy goes, hey, I know you're drunk, but he wrote the directions on my hand where I had to switch trains and stuff like that. And I go, oh, man. So we got to, we had to go to a place called Kaiserslautern. The military call it K-Town. And for some reason, they all got off and I was passed out, right? Because I went to the bathroom and threw up. And then I came back and I guess I got in the wrong boxcar. And the train went from Mannheim to K-Town to Saarbrücken to France. So the next day I wake up and the sun's beating through these windows and stuff, and some guy is shaking me and I don't understand him at all. He's speaking French and I didn't even know it was French he was speaking. And I said, wow. He goes, you got, you know, he grabbed me by the arm and I had to get off the train and stuff. And we went to the concert on a Sunday. We have duty that morning. And so I got off the train and I'm in the station and, you know, they had some English and French and stuff like that. And I'm going, I don't even know where I'm at. Well, come to find out that I rode that train all the way to a place called Lyon, France. That's at the bottom of France, right? The bottom of France. And it took me a day and a half to get back to Germany and back to my duty station.
Wow.
So I walked in, when I walked through the front gate, now mind you, this is a nuclear site, right? And the guard at the gate, he goes, Mike, what the heck, man? He said another word. He goes, Top wants you to report to his office as soon as you get here. I said, man, he already knows. He goes, dude, he goes, it's almost quitting time. And you've been gone for a day and a half. And I'm like going, oh my gosh. So I'll go in there. And now my first sergeant's name, because it was an MP company, his last name was Police. Police like a cop. That was his last name. So there was no other MOS he could have gone into anyway. Right. So I'm sitting there in the hallway and he comes out. He looks at me and tells me to get my blankety blank 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 in the blankety blank office and sit in that blankety blank chair and stuff like that. And so I began to tell him the story. And I'm an E2 now, right? Because I went to Korea. I did a year there. No, I was a PFC. And before I left his office, they busted me back down to an E2 for AWOL. And I said, man, he goes, and they gave me 14 days extra duty and 14 days restriction for a company grade, Article 15. Well, I will tell you, I learned my lesson off that one because there's two colors I just absolutely hate, is white and yellow. Because I painted every strip line on the, because the place was, I'm guessing that the base I was on couldn't have been, I mean, it could all probably fit on a football field. And he had me in the motor pool and I had stencils and I had to paint every white line in the motor pool for 14 days. I painted every red fire hydrant, every fire where the fire department can park and no parking zones and yellow poles. I painted everything because I had to did 8 hours of work, reported to the first sergeant, grabbed my 5-gallon bucket, and I worked 8 hours after I worked my first 8 hours. So I put in 16-hour days. Well, that doesn't include getting up before and going to PT. So that's 2 hours there. So that's 18 hours. So I got 4 hours of sleep a night for 14 days. Plus you couldn't leave anywhere. So the rule is if you've never drank and you go into the military, as the drug and alcohol counselor told me, moderation is the key. And that was the first time I ever heard that. Moderation. And I'm going to tell you something. That was probably the scariest non-combat thing that I ever did. When you wake up and you're in a foreign country anyway, Germany, and then you wake up in another country.
Yeah.
So that never happened again after that. And I'll tell you that. But that was when I tell that story. When I've talked to other guys, I go, dude, and how did you get promoted? Because nowadays, if you get an Article 15, you can just kiss your career goodbye, because when it's time to re-up, they'll slap an RE3 code on your re-enlistment, meaning you're not what the Army needs. Okay. And they put it on your 214 also, RE3 code. So that was my first experience with the Uniform Code of Military Justice system. So yeah, I wasn't happy about that.
You learn it very easy.
Yeah. Well, it's easy to learn the hard way, especially when you only make $397, and then they take half a month's pay for 2 months on top of the 14 days restriction and the 14 days extra duty too. So you can't go
Yeah,
out. Got no money.
Luckily, I made my whole career. I never got one Article 15. And there was a couple times I tried because I was trying to get fired from the position I was in. And of course, welcome to the military, the one job you can't get fired from unless, murder, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I tried to get one. Not that I wanted kicked out of the Marine Corps, but I was doing some super fun stuff that was, well, fun to me, not so much fun to, my leadership who had to be victim to it. But surprise, and it was funny because I talked to a lot of the senior leaders as I was getting ready to retire. They'd already retired, and you start talking to them, and they're like, of course, they don't tell you why you're in, but I wasn't a super liked guy within our community because I was a rule like stickler to, and not so much like the outside. It was, here's the orders and policies, just follow them.
Yeah.
Like, this is what we've got to do. But they wanted it. Well, we don't want to do it that way. It's harder that way. That's not our choice. And yeah, so, but I spent, well, yeah, technically my entire first contract, my first enlistment, I wasn't even 21.
Yeah.
Of course, drank like a fish, but that was the point though, that I drank before going to the Marine Corps, but I only drank like hard liquor or mixed drinks. And it wasn't until I got in the Marine Corps that I had to force myself on drinking beer just because it was cheaper and a whole lot easier to get a hold of than it was trying to get a bottle of liquor, somewhere. Plus, wherever I went, people normally had beer. There wasn't a lot of, hard liquor drinkers.
Right.
But yeah, so I never experienced, but I did watch. I know exactly what you were doing because I had watched some of my buddies that they couldn't have their head on straight, and they got stuck doing the restriction in the EPD, which that's the extra duty, extra permanent duty or punishment duty, something. I don't remember what it stood for, but
yeah, extra
yeah.
duty.
And there was guys, they were like repeat offenders to it. But we had, what was the one? There was actually a program, and then they kind of got rid of it not too long after. Like, I'd been in for a few years, and then they had gotten rid of it. But we had guys that went there. If you had guys that were, they were in trouble under one of the UCMJ articles, they had an option of, okay, you can do restriction, EPD, we'll take some pay, or, hey, this is your first time for that offense, we'll send you over to
like a retraining brigade.
Yeah, so they were the guys breaking rocks. Hey, you're gonna make this big rock into a whole bunch of little rocks.
Yeah. We had that at Fort Riley, Kansas, though.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we had it at Fort Riley, Kansas, and your commander had to sentence you to a full session of retraining brigade. So that's like going back through boot camp again the hard way.
Yeah, and they do, because it was all NCOs that ran it over there, and so they would take, and typically it was a non-NCO, but sometimes there was NCOs that got in trouble and they had to go do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're treated just like you're a recruit, not even a private. Like, you're back to boot camp being a recruit, and just like, I think I had went through corporal's course when they were still doing this extra. I wish I could remember what they called it, but and it was all in the same kind of area. Like, we were in this one set of barracks, old squad bay barracks for corporal's course, but all these guys had to stay over in this other barracks. And of course, it was PMO, the military police, are the ones that ran it all. And then they were the ones you seen them walking from main side all the way out to the main gate and back, doing police call, picking up the trash, and like, I was like, if that's enough incentive for me, like I wasn't one that I was looking for trouble anyways, but
Yeah.
that was definitely enough incentive for me to not. And it wasn't that I didn't do dumb stuff. I mean, I grew up all the time doing dumb stuff. It's just I knew how not to get caught most of the time. But I had kind of looking through comments and stuff. But so in line with our Tales from the Foxhole, uh, I've been wanting to kind of tell this story because I loved it. It was one of my early on field ops. So getting to Camp Lejeune, which is nothing but a swamp, and we would go out. So being a young early Marine, even though I went in as a mechanic, you're a glorified. So I'm well aware of the whole painting things. I did a lot of painting, and it wasn't even because I was in trouble. It was because they had nothing else for us to do. When you first got to the tank unit, you were part of headquarters and service company. So your
Right.
support, you're waiting for the other guys that can't fix it, or, so we did a lot of our field ops and training as provisional infantry. And they would set up a training, for a week or maybe 2 weeks or whatever. And hey, we're going to the field. And it was like, okay, well, what are we going to do? We don't have tanks. And they're like, no, we're going to convoy, pretend we're going to, help the tanks if they need it. But we're doing infantry tactics. And of course, this was all like pre 9/11. So everything is still Vietnam era based training. Everything was to go back jungle warfare, do all this stuff.
Right.
And so we would drive around, and from training area to training area. And of course, they always had to take the longest route possible to get there to give everybody convoy experience. And we get there, we get set up, and of course, you have to disperse the vehicles, and then you set up the camming netting over the vehicles, which was always fun with all the antennas and sharp pointing things. And so you get the camming netting set up, and then they're like, all right, now you're going to start working on your defensive positions. And it never failed. The minute you heard the last hammer hit a tent stake for camming netting, okay, tear it all down, we're moving. And I bet we would hit 5 or 6 training areas doing the same thing in one day. And we would do this for a week. But we had finally got to a point where we were going to be the OP4, the opposing force. We were playing the enemy. And they had set us up and said, hey, they're supposed to attack from over there. So all of our NCOs, I think I was a Lance Corporal or something at the time. So all of our NCOs, they set up our fighting positions. Everybody had to do a range card and set it up. And then the NCOs kept coming around, and they're like, all right, because we're just kind of sitting around when you're done digging your hole, because that was back when you were allowed to dig. We were digging our hole down, and they're like, oh, you didn't make a grenade sump. And so you got to dig the little grenade sump tunnel. And, oh, well, we got nothing but time. So we're going to build a bench so we have something to sit on, and we're not just standing here. And so when you would get that all part done, and then, we would put like our shelter half, or normally it was like the poncho, right? You put the poncho over the top, throw a couple branches, you're done. Well, they'd come around and they're like, no, you got to fortify your position, constantly fortify it. So this guy I had, there's 2 of us in the fighting hole, and we started looking. Well, we had we dug our seat, but then we went up and went another layer, because I could stand in that hole fully upright. My head wasn't above the ground.
Yeah.
So we had our spot where we could sit and be able to watch guard. But then we dug another little flat spot to where we could still be undercover. Nobody would know. And we made a bed. That was our little layout, like lounge area.
Yeah.
And so when we weren't, when it got nighttime, it was 50%. So one of you slept, one of you was awake, and you just take shifts. But they kept coming over, and it was aggravating, because they're like, keep fortifying. So him and I, we just went full bore. We started going out. We were cutting branches. We were pulling sticks, twigs. We had every bit. We could see out of our fighting hole perfect. Nobody could find us. All of a sudden, we're sitting down there and we're like, man, they didn't come get us for chow. Like, hey, you want to go up and find out? So he walks up because, being training, it was like, all right, everybody shut down, go to the chow truck, get chow, come back, And so we get over to chow, and one of the NCOs is like, hey, where the heck have you two been? And I was like, we're in the same spot we've been for the last 2 days. He's like, why couldn't I find you when I went around? And I'm like, we didn't move. It's the same hole we dug, And he's like, show me. So we walk him over there and we show him, everything we had. He's like, I've walked right by you like a dozen times. And we're like, my bad. So now we knew, because then more time went by. Well, nobody knew we were there. Even the NCOs that made us say, hey, dig your hole here, that was supposed to be on a card somewhere, they couldn't find us.
Yeah.
So we looked at each other and was like, we're both sleeping. Forget this. We're going to, I'll sleep sitting up over here. You can lay out on the thing. Like, we're going to sleep. Like, we're exhausted. This thing's been, going on. We're hot, sweaty, nasty. And sure enough, that night, they decided that the guys that were going to attack us, they came in. And I woke up because obviously I heard some commotion and we had flashbangs and stuff. And by the time I woke up and looked up, I was watching those guys run through our camp, going back towards the COC. And I'm like, oh, they done broke. So not only were we sleeping, but the 3 positions in front of us were all sleeping evidently too. And so these guys come busting in. Well, next thing you know, we're watching and they're running along. And I'm like, okay, so I wake my buddy up and I'm like, hey, dude, wake up. They're in the lines. We're going to have to pull back. And just as he was waking up, next thing you know, I got this full-grown Marine just falling in the hole because he didn't see our fighting position at all. And he just comes crumbling in there. And nobody got hurt, but it, yeah. And then, but they told us. And so then it was a goal from then on. If we had to go every time we went to the field and they said, keep fortifying your positions, we did. Whoever I was with, I was like, look, man, I'm telling you, we're both going to sleep all night tonight. Watch this. And it just looked like it was a brush pile, which is what it was supposed to be. And then the one corporal he kind of yelled at us at one point because he's like, well, I can't find you. And I'm like, well, why are you yelling at me about that? I did what you told me to do. And, being so early on, it was just, that was that confusing part. I hadn't been in the Marine Corps long enough to know that they're going to ask you rhetorical questions you're not supposed to answer.
Right.
And I did. I was like, and I don't know if Forrest Gump was out at that time, but, all it reminds me in that time was because you told me to, Lieutenant Dan.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it was, we had some nasty training, though, being in the swamp, but then it was on a peninsula, but they can't do that kind of stuff now.
Yeah, they got rid of the retraining brigade a while back, because when I worked AWOL app, my whole job when I was at Fort McClellan was to go around and pick up soldiers and deliver them to either to the retraining brigade, and then when we weren't doing that and picking up AWOLs and stuff like that, I was flying over to Germany and I was picking up people. See, if you're in Germany and you get sentenced to any time less than a year, then you go to the Mannheim Correctional Facility. And that's for anybody that's sentenced to a year or less in prison. And if you go to prison in the military, no matter when you started your court martial, you can't go to prison unless you're an E1. So if you're an officer and let's say you're a captain, and I had a case one time where he was married to I can't remember if she was Filipino or she was Korean or something. And they lived in a place called Frankenthal, Germany. And there's an army apartment building that the military leased from some German company. And he threw her off the 12th floor on top of the outside mailboxes. And so I can't remember if I think he was a lieutenant colonel. And we responded to it. And of course, CID came and everybody else. But then I was his escort through his entire court martial. So he stayed out at the confinement facility, and he had to wear bear fatigues out there when he was in there. And then when he had to go to court, then of course they gave him his uniform, his normal uniform, and he went into his court martial. And then he got sentenced to reduction to E1, and I think he got 25 to life. So I guess he could have got out. He had to do a minimum of 25 years.
Wow.
So yeah, I remember doing those missions, and some of the craziest things soldiers of all types did. It was just, I was befuddled sometimes knowing the amount of things that happened that senior ranking people did that was just beyond me. I mean, from murder to child abuse to, all kinds of stuff. I mean, it was just, I was working drug team one time, and they assigned me to a place called Patch Barracks, which is inside of Stuttgart, Germany. And that's where the UCOM headquarters was. And they sent me down there and they said, hey, we're getting a lot of people down there coming hot on the new urinalysis test. Well, the urinalysis test didn't go into effect till I want to say 82. Okay. And so as soon as they started doing the urinalysis test, man, it was like the chapter door was just wide open. It was just a revolving door. And they were kicking people out left and right because that urinalysis test came out, and they were just throwing all these people doing drugs out of the military. After they cleaned the military out, then when you're working drug team, it was more the people who were trying to make extra money, and they were selling drugs. They weren't using them because they said, hey, they didn't have all this fancy stuff they got today. Drink a gallon of Golden Seal and you go pass this test and all this other, And so they sent me down to Stuttgart, Germany, and that's where the UCOM commander was located at. He worked for the Supreme Allied Commander out of Belgium. And they put me down there into an MP company. I won't say the company name, but because they're still around. And so I'm working there as an MP because that's what I went to school for. And they put me in there. I was a staff sergeant, but they put me in there as a PFC. And so I'm working in there and stuff, and I'm screwing up left and right and doing, things that privates do and stuff like that, and just playing the role and stuff. And then I got on detail over at the chapel. They said, hey, our platoon had detail. So, and it went around to all the companies that were on the base. And so they said, hey, you're going over to the chapel. I said, what are we going to do at the chapel? Well, you're going to vacuum every day, sweep, mop, clean bathrooms. You're going to do all this stuff. I'm going, man, you're going to shampoo the carpets every Monday because they have Wednesday Bible study. And so we were over there working for this guy. And this chaplain was like really cool. And he was like the UCOM chaplain. He was a full bird colonel, right? And he was just, I said, man, when you're a private, a captain walks in, your butt puckers up, you know what I mean? And so this is a colonel, and he's just, hey, dude, what's going on, man? And stuff like that. And he goes, oh, man, take a seat, man. And they're sitting, we're just talking, where are you from, and all this kind of stuff. And all of a sudden, then the next thing I know, I think he was like a Presbyterian or something. I don't know. It's gosh, that was like 1982 or 83. And so we're sitting there talking to the guy and stuff, and he goes, hey, we're gonna have a party at my place. I have a house down here in Stuttgart. If you guys want to come, man, that'd be great. So we went there, and I was drinking with everybody and yada, yada, yada. And I walk into this bathroom because it was unlocked. And I see this dude snorting a line of Coke off the sink. And I go, man, I go, oh man, I'm sorry, man. He goes, it's cool, man. And he goes, there's a little bit on the sink if you want it. So I go down there and I go like this, and I take my finger and I swipe it, and then I lick my pinky finger, right? And so I'm walking out and I got my finger like this, and I go into the guy's office thing, and on his desk he had some tape, and I took the tape and put it over the cocaine, then I folded it over and put it in my pocket and tested it later, and it proved to be cocaine later on with a test kit. And so I'm sitting there, and I see the guy over there talking to the colonel, and he goes, oh yeah, this is the dude right here, man. He goes, I gave him my crumbs. And the colonel looked at me. I said, yeah. I said, he goes, he asked me a question. He goes, so how was it? I said, all my gums are numb. He goes, oh, that'll do it to you. It'll do it to you. It's some good stuff. And so on Monday, I see him again. Of course, he's the chaplain. I go in there, and he's even more chummier with me because he's saying, hey, this dude does coke, and it just went from there. And then we were off detail and all that kind of stuff after that. And then every once in a while, I just run into him and goes, hey, what's going on? And he'd hug me, and we'd be in uniform. My God, because, chaplains aren't really military people,
Right.
And so this went on for like 6 months and stuff like that. And he goes, can I trust you? I said, yeah. He goes, when are you on duty next? I said, well, I'm on duty tonight. And he goes, can you go to Robinson barracks for me tonight? I said, yeah. I said, I've got traffic detail. I can go anywhere. He goes, oh yeah. He goes, I got to get something over to my buddy over there. I said, okay. And so I take it over there and everything, and I'm looking at it and I'm going, it's squishy, and I'm going, man, this guy's sending stuff over there, right? So I take a pen and go by the tape, and I punch a hole over there and do the same thing. And it was cocaine. I put some tape on that thing, some clear tape on it, just like he had, and I take it over there. So we're doing this little cat and mouse thing, yada yada yada, so on and so forth. And then my commander, that I had to call twice a week to give him a sit rep, he goes, "We're taking him down now." I said, "Oh wow!" And so they go in there and bust him. And through all that stuff we did, he got busted with 3/4 of a pound of coke in his safe in the chaplain's office.
Wow.
I said, "Are you freaking kidding me?" I thought they were just, messing and stuff like that. But yeah, he was full doing it. He did. I think he did 15 years in the penitentiary in Leavenworth. So
And that was, I think when I first came in and you start talking to some of the guys that knew of, or there was even a few of the old timers that would come in for like reunion stuff, and they would talk about it. When you start reading a lot too about like the Vietnam, was if they didn't have a drug problem before they went to Vietnam, they typically picked one up while they were there and then came back with it.
And that's where they got the name of shotgunning, was in Vietnam, because they used the barrel of a shotgun when they inhale weed, and they would shoot it through there, and it's where they got the term shotgunning.
Yeah. Well, and what surprised me, so back then, right? And you were kind of like, when you were in that transition where you still had the Vietnam vets, in or in dealing with stuff, as to where they were all cleared out by the time I got in. Yeah, there was still a drug problem.
Big time.
And I was just blown away with it, because like I used, before I went in the Marine Corps, almost daily. But then when I signed those papers and swore in and said, "Hey, I'm I'm leaving for boot camp now," I was done with it. And and I get that some of that stuff is very addictive, and it is hard to get off from. But I think the wildest story that I had dealing with it was, I was out in 29 Palms. And of course it's bad out there, because you'll be in 29 Palms and all of a sudden, like, you're out in a training area and you're looking out into way open desert, and you just see this random explosion ball of fire. And I'm like, should we go investigate what that is? Like, I didn't think anybody was over. And they're like, no, that's off base, because it was several miles away, but you could see it. And I was like, well, there's nothing out there. It's just, and they're like, no, that used to be a meth lab, but evidently they weren't very good because they just blew up.
Yeah.
And so part of the in brief of coming into 29 Palms was, they're like, hey, don't go to rickety shacks out in the middle of the desert. They're all, and it used to have, there was a really big population of people that were, using meth and doing that stuff, which then led to like some of the sexual diseases. So they're like, hey, if you're married, don't be, if you're married, good. If you're not married, don't be going out in, 29 Palms itself trying to think you're going to get, because either they're a tweaker and they've got all kinds of stuff you don't want, or they're already married to another Marine and he's deployed. But yeah, I had this young Marine, and it was so aggravating dealing with him, because I seen very good Marines that made maybe a small mistake or some sort of a medical something, and I watched them within a matter of weeks get discharged from the Marine Corps.
Right.
Like, it took no time at all. But we had this one kid, and I just happened to be the platoon sergeant at the time, that he passed out during one of our morning formation runs. Conveniently enough, it was right at the hospital parking lot. So I had some NCOs, hey, go carry him over to the emergency room, call me, figure out what's wrong with, jackwagon over here. And so we finished PT, and I get back to the office after shower, and I get a phone call, and they're like, hey, we need you to come up to the hospital. It was one of the staff doctors up there. And we're like, okay, is everything all right? And they're like, well, we just come on up. They said you're the platoon sergeant. So I get up in there, and they've got him like he's out like a light. And I'm like, is he alive? And they're like, oh, he's alive. He's feeling pretty good, but he's alive. And I'm like, feeling good. This kid tested positive for like 4 different variants of drugs at that time. And we were just like, so he's not just dehydrated. Like, we kind of figured, hey, he's just dehydrated. He was always a pain in the all the time anyways. And they're like, yeah, no, dehydration isn't his problem right now. And so I was like, okay, good to go. Like, grabbed the report, took it back down, talked to Master Guns and them. And I said, hey, this kid, they've got the test work. Like, we don't even have to, piss him now. They did the blood work at the hospital. Like, and they're like, perfect. We're getting rid of this kid. And because, I mean, he was worthless anyways. How he made it even through boot camp, I don't know. But then to be able to get to the fleet and just be worthless.
Yeah.
But there's always the ones that slip through. And so we're questioning him. Hey, what did you take? What did you take? And he's like, well, I was out at the skate park out in town, and someone gave me a caffeine pill. No, they didn't. What did you take? And then it changed from like, oh, it was a caffeine pill so we could keep skating, to it was he had a headache and took some Tylenol, or what he thought was Tylenol. And we're like, okay, that's still not what happened. And that was it the first time that I seen Master Guns. And this guy was like 6'4", super fit. And you knew he could get mad, but he was chill. Like, he was out. He literally went surfing every morning. And, just super happy dude all the time. But I was like, wow. I watched him unload on this kid. And, of course, we're in the back cheering him. Like, get him, Master Guns, get him. Like, it took us almost 6 months to get that kid discharged. And we had put him on restriction, which was he had to stay up at the battalion head shed in these rooms so that the duties could watch him 24/7. They were allowed to go to church, to chow, and to work. That was it. Nothing else. If they needed toiletries, we had to send one of the NCOs over, get his list of what he needed from the PX, and go. Well, this kid gets over there and starts stealing stuff from everybody that's on restriction. And we're like, you're already on restriction, and now you're stealing things out of other guys. And then I got a call probably about 2 weeks later, and the officer of the day had called and said, hey, I need you to come down here. So I come over there, and they got PMO, and I'm like, oh, what did this a-hole do now? Like, Can we just get rid of him? Like, I don't understand. How is he still here? And
hang on a second.
Yeah.
PMO is Provost Marshal's office.
Oh, yeah.
Just in case.
So PMO's there, and we're like, this is not going to go well. And but then I see like 2 civilian women there. Well, yeah, all of a sudden, somehow he got in part of, which we had heard that there was a lot of theft going on at the main exchange. Well, he was friends with the people that were doing all the stealing. And there was, I think it broke down to where there was like 2 of them were working at the main exchange. The other 2 were friends of theirs. So they would, come on base while they were working and be able to, while they were working, they would shove stuff in a spot where they thought nobody would know. And then the other 2 could grab it and come out. And then they were bringing him. And I don't even know how, like, I guess on the way to chow or something, they would have somehow, they still managed to get him drugs. He was on restriction. like we had to put him on a 24-hour watch to where he was never allowed, like not even in the bathroom. Like, sorry, dude, you're gonna go with me staying in here. Because it blew my mind. I'm like, if you would take, like, I tried to talk to him one day thinking, hey, maybe a heart to heart, I'm like, if you put a quarter of the amount of effort into being a decent Marine, I'm not even asking you to be a stellar Marine, just be a decent Marine as you put into being a turd, you would succeed. And but I think the greatest part of all of it, right? Because I mean, I was super frustrated with. We finally got the call in the paperwork that day. He was discharged. Here it is. Here's his DD 214. I'm like, absolutely. So Master Guns looked to me and he said, "You go pick him up from the battalion office, yank all of his stuff, because with him being discharged, he didn't take nothing. I think he had just his personal civilian attire. He wasn't allowed to take any civilian attire whatsoever." Or military gear, not even his sea bag or anything. So Master Guns is like, you give him a couple trash bags, he puts his stuff that he needs to carry, he changes over, you get to the gate, he goes, you pull outside the gate, there was like a little pull off, he said, you drop him right there. I said, Master Guns, you don't want me to take him, like drop him at the hotel, bus station? He said, no. It was like 2 miles from the main gate to get to anything. Like, there wasn't even a house. It was just open desert. And I was like, you know what? I felt a little bad at first. And then as we're driving over there, and he's like, and of course, then he looks at me. He's like, you're really going to just, and I said, yep. I said, you know how much crap you've put me through in the last like 6-8 months? And like all the bad crap you've done to the Marine Corps? I was like, no, guess what? And he tried to play it off like, oh, I can't believe you're going to do that. And I was like, you're not a Marine. So you're right. I see you. And sure enough, and I sat there and watched to make sure he kept walking for a ways, and which you hate to do, but when you've got a guy that big of a turd, like you gotta.
And I'm going to tell you something. People think, oh, you can just crucify him, throw him out of the military. It's a lot of paperwork. It's a lot of, for their first line supervisor, it's a hell of a lot of work. And then you got to put up with these people. And so, hey guys, one thing I want to point you out is Monday, the 11th, I believe that's Veterans Day. And so Mickey has gracefully donated 6 t-shirts. And he's got 6 tees. He's got 6 different designs for any branch of service. And he wants to donate those for Sergeant's Talk TV giveaway. So
That's awesome, Mickey.
November 11th.
I did. November 11th, Veterans Day. Yeah. So, and we'll talk to you, Mickey. I appreciate that very much.
You are amazing, Mickey. Thank you, brother.
And we also have our standard Sergeant's Talk TVs, TV teas, and coffee cups on MT Homestead's Streamlab merch store. You can go to the MT Homestead and you can click on there and you can order you a tea off that. But yes,
have we I'm here for running my mouth.
Has
Terry put that link on the Sergeant's Talk
about
description, the about page? Yeah, you know.
No, we can't. We can. We should put it on there just to direct them.
I was just thinking about it while you're talking about it. I'm like, why hasn't we done that? But
yeah,
she's busy enough. I can't
I'm
add
sure
any
we can
more.
put a link on there, and it can go straight over there to it. All right, good. So hey guys, that's Tales from the Foxhole. Nobody came up. Nobody came in the green room, but that's okay. We'll be doing this once a month and bringing that up once a month. So get your stories in line. Do your research. Think back for some of y'all. It might be a long ways back. You got to think about it. But hey, guys, thanks for coming in. Hey, remember, be kind to one another. help somebody in need. And always think of that. Guys,
Every
we
day,
love
all
you.
day.
God bless you. Hey, and we'll see you next week.
See you guys. Thanks for coming in. We appreciate
Yeah,
it.
guys. All
Share
right.
it out.
God bless.